I heard there's an eye for an eye,
Right.
right?
Right.
So if you live,
Every, everybody walking around blind, but yeah, you touch mine, I'm gonna destroy everything you touch.
yeah, and that's it, right? Like now, let's take that a step further. So how can I do that? If it's a tight knit community, then we protecting everybody in the community, right? Like my cousin, I have a cousin. If I went and got him right now, he'll take down the world for me. But his situation, can he come get me and I take down the world for him?
Mm.
Cause he's on crack. Would I stop what I'm doing and take down the world for him, or would I make the excuse that man he did something, he on that crack,
Wow.
right? You know what I'm talking about? So
Mhm.
where do we draw some loyalty and some community where we're gonna protect?
Welcome to the We Got Problems podcast with co-hosts Curtis G. Martin, Rhonda L. Brown, and Caliph Johnson Sr., the one and only podcast where solutions get discussed to our community's everyday troubles. Each week, you will hear mind-blowing conversations and actionable tips and strategies that you can implement in your daily life to become more effective. We got problems and we got solutions.
All right, you guys, welcome to the show. This is We Got Problems, the podcast where we talk solutions. I'm Curtis G. Martin. I'm here with my co-host Rhonda L. Brown,
Hey, everybody.
Caliph Johnson Sr.,
Peace, y'all. How y'all doing?
and Lashika Phillips. Hey,
Hey.
hey, you guys, we came on to talk about Juneteenth today. So what you got?
I don't know. It's a couple of things I think we've talked about in the past about Juneteenth, but would love to hear from y'all. Like, I mean, I don't know. Juneteenth has been celebrated for I don't know how many years. I can't think of it right now. The exact date and the exact number of years, but I'm curious to hear y'all's perspective of how Juneteenth has kind of evolved in significance and meaning for the Black community over the years, right? Because I can say pre-COVID, right, pre-George Floyd, I could probably count on one hand how many well-known Juneteenth celebrations I've known about, right? Um, but now today, if you just go to any search engine and just type Juneteenth, it's like tons and tons of events, right? So I'm just curious. I would love to hear y'all's perspective or take on that.
For
Anybody, Rhonda?
me,
Yeah,
look,
what you
I know we celebrated Juneteenth when I was younger. I didn't know what it was.
okay? Did
Like
y'all call it Juneteenth though?
I don't think so because I never heard the term Juneteenth until I was an adult,
Yeah,
and I was like, wait, what? Like, what is that?
yeah.
So but I know we had to have celebrated it. It just wasn't called that.
Uh-uh.
But
You
then the
know what?
more research that I did, once I started hearing about it and I started researching, I was like, oh, okay, okay. What
Hmm.
was you gonna say?
All right, for me, it was never something that we celebrated. We never even knew about it. Like you said, it wasn't something that was talked about in our household until we got into adulthood. So for me, Juneteenth has evolved into a holiday where they're trying to make it about commerce to me. So for
Mm,
it was never something that was really widely celebrated. It was never something that we were educated on in school. It was never something that they even really talked about, except for the old folk in the community that actually knew something about it. And if you didn't have a connection with any of your ancestors, any of the old heads, you had no clue
I
on what it
know.
was. So
Yeah,
for me, it's something kind of new, and it's starting to get commercial, actually.
yeah.
For me, my family didn't celebrate it either. I've learned it through adulthood as well, through my journey of finding myself and where we come from, and needing a culture, right? Like
Hmm.
trying to build a culture, right? Like because we don't really have a culture. Like everybody's like, "Oh, do this for the culture." I don't. That's not my culture that they talking about, right? That thug life, all that. So trying to
Mm-hmm.
find a culture for my family to grow up under, I just been looking for something. And what I've noticed, from my perspective, is that those families that was not radical but pro-black, they
Mm,
celebrated it that I seen, right? Like I would learn it from them to where they learned blackness. They learned to be black and proud, but not with the radical side, but not with the we wasn't passive either.
Mm,
um I think now watching it is something, it's the beauty of it, of us trying to find our own. So you start seeing more people celebrate it. And then
Yeah.
as things happen in the news, like you said, pre-George Floyd, once that happened to George Floyd, like, you know what, I'm Juneteenth now, right? Like we're gonna celebrate our culture this way. But what I've seen, like Trash said, is that, in America, anything that go on, they monetize it, right? And we create culture, and they monetize it.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is we think that monetizing take meaning and culture from it, and then now, sometimes what end up happening is we'll shy away from Juneteenth because we don't want to be part of that, them monopolizing the money off of
right.
something that we do. But we just got to learn how to monetize it first. Like right out the gate, it got to be monetized, right? Black Jesus, boom, give me an offering pan.
Not Black Jesus. But it's so wild because I hadn't thought about this until just now when you said about, some people want to like separate themselves from it just because it's becoming so commercial. And you are absolutely right, because isn't that what happened with Memorial Day?
Yeah.
Right? So
Mm-hmm.
Memorial Day, it started out, as a Black tradition, some Black folks wanting to celebrate some fallen soldiers, right? Isn't that's the origin of it. And then what happened is someone else took that idea, whatever, and what did they do? Exactly what you said, monetized it. Now there were fees associated with doing these kind of memorials, if you will. So I can certainly see that now, and I would hate to see Freedom Day. That's what I grew up knowing it was called, Freedom Day. I didn't know about Juneteenth until I was probably maybe 20 years
Mm-hmm.
old. But we called it was always Freedom Day. But I would really hate um, to see that happen to where we kind of remove ourselves from it, and like another Memorial Day, right? So now
Hmm.
it's generations of kids and people who have no idea the origin of Memorial Day. That's how much it's just being erased. Our history has been erased. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
no,
So,
that's the part of it. Like we have to continue, but I think when we talk support, right? When we support what each other is doing, then whoever try to monetize it after that, it don't even matter, because if it's not sitting well with us, then it's gonna fold, right? Because
Yeah.
uh, we create everything, right? We create culture. Like when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to style, when it comes to rhythm, that's us, right? Like not no knock on everybody else, but it is. When it comes to fashion, what we put out is there, and then they do something to glamorize it, and put it out there and monetize, and then we shy away from it, right? And even with fashion, I think people take bits and pieces from each other's culture, right, and then make it into what it is. But we can take a hat, a regular baseball hat, right, and it becomes a fashion statement now.
Hmm.
It was a
mm,
baseball hat, right? Now you got baseball players that can come in and take some regular cleats and go back and say, you know what? I like these pants you guys wear, but I'm gonna wear the socks that they used to wear back in the black base Negro leagues, right?
Hmm.
mhm.
So the fashion becomes that. Then you start seeing all players do it. You see white players do it, right? Like you see Chinese players or Asian players do it, right? So we create culture. We just got to remember to monetize and not shy away from what our culture is, because that could be the new way to make us forget our culture, right? As we trying to build it.
Yeah. So, with that being said, what are some of the lesser known stories or aspects of Juneteenth that you believe more people should be aware of?
That it wasn't all about General, what was his name, Granger, whatever, the
Mm,
white soldier, the white savior, that
hmm.
apparently the holiday is around. This white man basically came to tell these Black people, you're free. That's so not the case. I mean, it was a bunch of Black soldiers that were there that made that happen.
That went
um,
down to Texas that I remember. They were down in
Mm-hmm.
Texas, and they let the Texas slaves know that, y'all been free since back on this date, and y'all still in slavery.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that most people don't realize that, and that those soldiers later were known as Buffalo Soldiers. I don't think most people know that. And you can find that history out at there's an African American, it's like a war memorial or soldier monument or museum, and they have so many artifacts about blacks in the military, and that's actually one of the exhibits about Juneteenth there. So I would
You
have to
know,
say, yeah.
one of the lesser known facts that happened after slavery that I think a lot of us don't know about is the reparations that were paid to the slave owners.
Right.
Right.
Like they scream and complain and hoop and holler about anybody getting reparations, but they were the first in line when they lost their property. They felt that because they lost their property, they were entitled to get some type of compensation for it. So I think that's one of the things that I think a lot of us fail to realize when you scream that they don't feel like they need reparations or whatever. They were the first ones in line to get theirs when they went ahead and start losing their property, which were actually human beings that they were taking care of at the time. So it's a lot of history in that a lot of people don't talk
Yeah.
about what's going on in this country to get us to this point. And they want to sit and look at us as begging or with our hands out, when actually every time we put our hands out, they done slapped our hands. And these are the same hands that built this country.
They slapped cuffs on the hands.
Come on.
They got reparations and then free
They wrote,
labor
then they
because
wrote
we
the
were in
12th Amendment.
prison
Go ahead.
Yeah.
for loitering or vagrancy and just dumb stuff.
They redoctored slavery up.
Right.
Yeah.
So one fact or thing that I know that people don't know, and like I said, I didn't know much about the holiday to a few years back, really, is that this holiday actually been celebrated over 150 years.
Oh, see, I
Right.
didn't know it was that long.
So it's
Yeah,
150.
it's been a long
Okay.
time. But now, once we, like I told you, we dictate culture, right? So
Mm-hmm.
once we jump in on it, then somebody else monetize it, right? Like I
Yeah.
remember right after the pandemic, I think it was Lashika when I saw it. Once everything opened back up, they were selling Juneteenth shirts in Target. I was like,
And the ice
Oh,
cream.
Right. Yes.
wow, that's crazy.
Right.
Oh, if I could add one more lesser known fact, I just remember something from research I did a couple of years ago. But there is a region in Mexico that to this day they celebrate Juneteenth. And the reason is because there were Black people in this region who they in the process of them trying to escape to freedom, went and found kind of refuge in this area in Mexico, and those people stayed there in Mexico, and the Mexicans took on that holiday with them, and so there is, like I said, a small population in Mexico, and it's a whole thing that they do. It's really unique.
I saw it recently.
Oh,
I
you
did.
did?
Yeah, I did see it recently, and they came out and was speaking like it was a big thing to where they were talking about like, no, we here, and just to know that we are Afro Latino, right?
Yes,
And so even something to that, like people don't know the history. The slave trade went through Mexico. Right, like so,
absolutely.
Mexico was a darker city at one time. People don't want to get into that, but Mexico was a darker city at one time, and it's the same thing like going on all across the world with people wanting to lighten their skin because of
Mhm.
hatred, right? Like so you might not marry a person of darker skin. You're gonna look for a person of lighter skin to marry, and throughout generations, that your family tree changes. Right?
Mhm.
Like people don't realize that, but um, all the Hispanics I know, man, when they have big family gatherings where people come from everywhere, they always have a few dark people who don't speak nothing but Spanish,
Yeah.
and they the
Mm-hmm.
oldest ones in the group.
Wow.
Right, so you see it, and not nothing to knock on anybody, but it's a lot of pyramids over there too, right?
It is.
Uh-huh.
it's
A
a lot of
lot.
pyramids right here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Hey,
what
we better stick to that Juneteenth because I'm hearing it's a bunch of shit in Arizona, man.
Man,
Oh,
that's another conversation.
Yeah.
right. What role does education play in ensuring that Juneteenth is widely recognized and understood by people of all backgrounds?
Mm.
Oh man. So here it is. Like y'all know the wheels was turning right when we started talking about this, right? Because we have
Mhm.
that book. Everybody don't know about. We have a book called The Black Rise that the Black Mastermind's done, right? So me thinking about that book, we need to do a book on something Juneteenth or
Ooh.
Black Our Story, right? I
Ooh.
would want to name it Our Story, Black Our Story, right? Our Story.
Like
Um,
a play on history, but
yeah, yeah,
ours.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
got
You
you.
let,
And
hey,
Okay.
and
hold on.
and,
You
and,
left some jewels out the bag. Hold
and
on.
no, look. So here's the thing. By the time this episode is aired and people think they're gonna jump on the
We would
idea
have
will be
already.
finished. Yeah,
It's
so
over with.
I get it. But yeah, no, and there's so many ways to do that, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's something I want to see. We do some research and put some stuff together and
I
see
love
if
that.
it's a big time to do things like that now, especially with these inclusion programs that every company is having, right? So now
Mm-hmm.
they can grab this book and here, you know what? This one a little too radical for us, but I like this one. You know what? This one a little too passive. I like this one, right? So we have a bunch of stories. No matter what you think of the book, it's something in there for you.
Yeah, I love
Mhm.
that. Love
And
that.
that way we can teach not only our kids can have something to pass down generations after generations, right? And then they
Yeah.
can say, who was the authors? Oh, they look just like me, right? Like I could be an
Mhm.
author.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so as far as that goes, I think we need more teachers that look like us that are teaching about us, because when you don't have people who are representing you teaching your kids, they're not going to give them their history. They're going to give them the history that they want them to have. So I believe that we need to invest more into our teachers so they can have people in positions who've been educated the right way, not just the book education but the life education,
Mm.
so they can take them and give them the experience of being a melanated person. Because it's hard when you start in kindergarten and the teachers all the way to the 12th grade don't look nothing like you.
Wow.
I can remember vividly Mr. Whitehead, he was my 8th grade math teacher, and he gave us a little lesson on math at book smart, but he gave us a whole class on life, and he taught us how it was to be a melanated man in this country. And if we don't have men like that leading our kids will never understand how valuable they truly are, and they'll let these holidays dictate them. You know how many kids look forward to seeing Christmas just to get gifts?
Mhm.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? How many young girls look forward to Valentine's Day just to get candy and roses? So how about we look forward to Juneteenth for our kids to look something to be proud about? Like, this
Yeah.
is something that your family has come through in order for you to get here. And when we have teachers actually putting that pride into them and not the pride of the month, you know what I mean? Just really give them the pride in who they are as a melanated man or woman, and take them to the next level on that.
Hey, I
Yeah.
ain't trying
Right.
to take this nowhere. Was that a little dig right there? Not the pride of the month.
No, no, you know that.
I'm sorry, bro.
I was
if,
gonna.
if you
Oh, go
notice,
ahead.
that's what's celebrated this month, and you see Target and everybody under fire for their advertising practices right now and who they're advertising to, and that's a whole different story. But they'll celebrate that and they'll put that in front of every camera and they'll talk about it, but they won't ever give us an opportunity to talk about the pride and what it took to get this country to where it's at, and what it took for each of us to be sitting in our own individual dwellings to be able to talk about the stories of our ancestors. Because I just had to teach my nephew about Emmett Tills. They ain't never teach him about that in school.
Wow. Wow.
And I had to teach him the importance of knowing who you are, because if you know who you are, then you know what's out there for you. Because
Yeah.
this is the history of the country that you are in right now is, and they'll never teach them the ugly side of it. They'll only teach them, well, General Custer was a great dude. They ain't gonna tell them about the millions that we ain't gonna talk about that, but yeah, they
Yeah. I
teach
was
you.
gonna. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, they teach you the pretty side of it. They teach you the pretty side of the war, but they'll never teach you all the ugly side that they had to do to get to where we're at right now. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I was gonna add that in terms of the role education can play, I think to Curtis' point about us creating our own book or book of stories, I think that having more books for children with relevant history, but the children nowadays, they not like us. I mean, they are not like us, right? So
Mhm.
I'm just thinking that I don't know if a book about Juneteenth is something that would be intriguing to like a middle aged child right now. But I bet if we were to add some technology to it, I don't know if it was a video game or some app, or I have no idea. But I think that education can play a great role if we're able to um, have some type of, like I said, more, not just books. So we need something more than just,
A YouTube channel.
or YouTube channel, something that I think
Put it
is
on
going to
TikTok.
get their attention.
Put it
Uh,
on TikTok. That's where they at hanging out all day anyway.
No, we can do that, but I think you always need to have a book because
yeah,
this digital stuff can go away. Books can deteriorate too, but at least you have something to where you right. We had books. I hear stories of slaves had books that they hid and learned how to read themselves.
right,
Right.
Mhm.
right.
So that book thing, let's take that, turn it around, and we can preserve what you get.
Hmm.
I'm telling you, y'all heard me say this before. I take it back to Kanye West said, "My father was a Black Panther." He said, "Y'all don't get the significance of this make believe movie talking about Black Panther." He said, "Now you can't find anything about my father um, in the
Mm,
media because Black Panther dominates it."
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Right? The
wow.
movie. Right? So you can't look up Fred Hampton no more, right? Like you can't type in Black Panther and Fred Hampton automatically pops up.
No,
Right.
You
Wakanda.
don't see Wakanda,
Kinda gonna
yeah.
pop up, some make believe story, right? Like
Mhm.
Wow,
you know,
such a great point. Hadn't thought about that.
yeah, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because this guy, um, we were talking about Wakanda, and he tried to be sarcastic and say, "Hey, but y'all do know that's a make believe story." And I said, "Man, check this out, man. It ain't about it being a make believe story because Wakanda is right here. It's in
Mhm.
my
Mm,
heart, man. Wakanda's in my heart, man. Like you can't take that place, right? It's already here.
Right.
That uranium, I'm the uranium,
yeah,
Vibranium. That vibranium.
right? Is that what it's
Exactly.
called? I said
yeah.
uranium.
Vibranium. Vibranium. Yeah, but actually it's a stone that generates electromagnetic pulses that is you find nowhere else but in Africa, in the Congo. And it's a lot of precious metals like that. So yeah, they made a story out of it and they tried to glamorize it, but the truth is that they're stealing minerals right now from that continent at
Mm,
an alarming rate, and it's everything that keeps these laptops, these computers, and these phones going, and you can't get it anywhere else. So yeah, you want these phones to stop, you stop taking the cobalt from Africa right now, and no more phones. Ain't gonna be no iPhone 15. But yet and still the people are living in some of the worst conditions of all time.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
And then that still go back to not allowed to monetize because they over there they can't monetize, right?
Right.
Right.
They in debt to certain countries on these loans that they never can repay,
How
right?
can they be in debt though? They
Uh,
ain't
uh,
really.
but it's this system, bro. So they in debt because of this system. So until right, it comes with everything. Until people stand up and fight for what's right, then
Mm,
do bloodshed have to happen? I don't think so. But at the same time, maybe right. At some point, to get what you deserve, to get what you want, you have to fight for it, right? That's what they always
yeah,
tell us. If you want something, you got to fight for it, right?
But
Mhm.
see, the moment you stand up and start doing anything different, you get assassinated from every which way.
So once we start worrying about being assassinated, we're now slaves.
It's not about worrying about being assassinated. This is just giving history on what's happened up until this
But I'm
point.
saying once that become a deal breaker, then we become slaves.
Mm,
Right? Like at some point, right, we have to stand up and say, okay, look, and I hate taking these conversation racial, but it just has racial undertones to everything we do, right? Like from the
yeah.
system, right? But this guy was saying, um, man, you know what's the problem? Why police keep killing black people? One, they backed by the law, right? They get fired and then that be it. They might get
Hmm.
put on probation or something, can't get a police job, right? But if one unjustly kills my son and I go kill his son, then it'll stop, right? Because they know, like, hey, they're gonna kill your kids if you kill one of their kids,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it just like I don't know, like this the part of the Bible I never really understood. Because you stop at certain scriptures where you like to hear it, right? An eye
Hmm.
for an eye, right? Once
Hmm.
I hear that, like shit, I don't read on to know that okay, this is what's gonna take place. No, I heard there's an eye for an eye,
Right.
right?
Right.
So if you live,
Every, everybody walking around blind, but yeah, you touch mine, I'm gonna destroy everything you touch.
and that's it, right? Like now, let's take that a step further. So how can I do that? If it's a tight knit community, then we protecting everybody in the community, right? Like my cousin, I have a cousin. If I went and got him right now, he'll take down the world for me. But his situation, can he come get me and I take down the world for him?
Mm,
Cause he's on crack. Would I stop what I'm doing and take down the world for him, or would I make the excuse that man he did something, he on that crack,
wow.
right? You know what I'm talking about? So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
where do we draw some loyalty and some community where we're gonna protect?
Well, our community got to protect our community. Everybody, our members inside our community, got to protect the ones. He shouldn't ever put you in a position where you got to risk everything that you've accomplished in your life to protect him doing the
Okay,
craziness
I
that
like
he's
that.
doing.
I like that,
He
but
got
I
to protect the
I
people.
shouldn't put him in the position either,
I,
right?
I
Right.
1000% agree. And me knowing who you are, you wouldn't put him in a position unless it
So
was
so so when do we protect all, right?
Mm,
when
Like
all
that's my
protects
only
us.
thing. That's my only thing. Like, cause I get it, and that's one reason when I get into something, if I ever get into something, right, I know not to run and get my folks because they're gonna get themselves into something, right?
Yeah,
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that for that reason. But if somebody unjustly did something to me and I can't respond for myself,
mm,
would the community respond?
it should.
hmm.
Right? George Floyd, did the community really respond the correct way?
Wow. Wow.
Right? Like we marched. We got an organization to step up and get millions of dollars that didn't come to our community.
I was
Wow.
gonna say that wasn't our organization.
Right? No, I get it. I don't rock with them, but see the undertones of what happened with same thing with Juneteenth. Right? I don't want to
Right.
take it too far away from Juneteenth, but the same thing
Mm-hmm.
that happened with Juneteenth, you got a name that I want to say I don't associate with. Man, I don't mess with Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
Right? Like how I can't even fix my mouth to say I don't rock with Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Right? Like I don't mess with that organization, but Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean?
We're right.
Like we
Right.
gotta put some extras on it, right? Like so that's the hard part. Same thing with
Right.
Juneteenth. It's monetized by others now. Oh man, no, I don't rock with Juneteenth, man.
But I don't even know if it'll do that because I mean, if you look at it, look at Cinco de Mayo. Who celebrates that?
It's not even
Everybody.
the independence of
That's what I'm
Mexico.
saying. And
That's not the actual day, though.
It's
people
not.
people don't even know what they're celebrating. They
No,
just
they have
Cinco de
no
Mayo, we
idea.
going to get tacos and we're drinking.
Yeah, yeah. But
Like
it's
That's
still monetized.
right,
it is
it's yes, it's monetized,
Right.
very
but
commercial.
they don't know the meaning. So we have to educate our kids. We have to
Yeah.
educate whoever. Like
I agree.
just to keep it going and keep it pure. which I don't know if we can now that it's, commercialized and a federal holiday, they're gonna do what they want with it.
You
But
mean you didn't get some Juneteenth ice cream? Y'all didn't get none of that.
No,
Nah, nah. September 16th is actually the Independence Day of Mexico. So what we celebrating May 5th for?
hey, so I will probably buy a shirt from Prolific. You know what I mean?
I support Brother Prolific on anything
But
he does.
other than that, I won't be in the stores buying anything. I might buy the family just to get them going, to get the kids going, right? Like, cause
Yeah.
I constantly, cause my kids, they go to a predominantly white school, and I have to always tell them about stories and uplift them, right? Because all of the stuff they hear, I was like, my dad come home. I mean, my son come home and tell me, Dad, why Kanye West do all these bad things to people? And I'm like, who said he did something bad? Oh, well, my teacher was saying that. I said that's her
Wow.
perspective. I said that's her perspective. I said you got to listen at what he said. He said there's no way he could be anti-Semitic
Hmm.
because he too is Jew.
Mm,
Right? So
mm.
anything I say after that is not disrespect. You see what I'm talking about? Like
Right.
mhm.
so somewhere in there they had to find a way to flip it, right? Like it's just crazy. But yeah, it was a couple times. They went to a museum and my son came back. Hey, did you know Malcolm X had teamed up with who? Right? Like, y-
No.
yeah. So I was like, come on, man. Here, let's go look at some information, right? So I have to like talk to him so much to where he tells me these stories. Then I have to look up, and then my go to all is say, man, always keep your head up high. The girls too. Just know that your ancestors birthed the entire universe, the
That part.
civilization of America,
Hmm.
right? Or the world, really.
Hmm.
Homo sapiens sapien.
Yeah, like it's just so much. So let's not lose Juneteenth. I think the last question is, what are some creative ways individuals and communities can even honor Juneteenth? What do you guys think?
I think that if you want to be intentional on that day, it's a few things you can do. You can be intentional and buy black. It's a great time. It just so happened that Juneteenth is right around Father's Day. You can, honor both celebrations with one black owned business by getting something for a father or a man in your life to celebrate Father's Day, but buy that from black owned business. You can, I think that there's so many other ways. You can Google and research. There's so many black ran nonprofits that are needing volunteers. That's a
The Black
great
Masterminds.
great opportunity. Absolutely. Great opportunity to volunteer or at least jumpstart your commitment to volunteering. Let Juneteenth be an opportunity where you find a nonprofit that you want to commit to, maybe for the next few months, next year or so. I think that's great. I think in terms of families, sit down and tell the stories of your family, of your ancestors. If you say, well, I can't go all the way back to, it doesn't matter. Go back as far as you can. Share those stories. And if you feel like you lost and you want to take it a bit further, hop on and do some research with the census, the U.S. Census documentation, so you can fill in some of those blanks. So that's just my 2 cents. Yeah. Anybody else have any they want to share?
I would say get out in the community. Like, they coming in, gentrifying, buying up properties in our community because we don't take care of them.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
out there and do something to better your community.
Okay, for me, it's real simple. Us as young people, and I call myself young and I'm in my 40s, we have to talk to our elders and we have to be the bridge to take these lessons back to the young people and let
Yeah.
the young people have experience from us and then take them to go speak with their ancestors so they can have a conversation to see what it took for them to get to where they're at. I think once they understand the stories and the the tribulations that their ancestors have went through, maybe they can honor and respect the position that they're in at this point in
Mm,
life. So the only way that we can actually do anything is by educating our youth on who they truly are. And if you educate them on who they truly are, they won't fall astray. They're basically growing to the young people that we need to lead our community as adults. So we got to start with sitting down, talking with our elders, and taking those lessons back to our youth. And if we have that pipeline going where they're comfortable sitting down talking to their elders, and then when their kids come around, you'll be the elders for them that they can come
mm,
back to, and you can take the lessons that you learned from sitting down talking with your elders and pass those stories down, because that's how we've always learned throughout these millennia. We've learned by communicating and passing stories down and letting them know who we truly are. Do some research, get some education in your head, pick up a book and read, learn something new, and pass it down to the next generation.
Hey, I would just say my comment is to all the non-indigenous people in America. Don't think that when we're trying to big up our community that we're disowning or disrespecting other communities. We're trying to build up our
mm,
community. Everybody say we need to lace up our bootstraps, pull up our boots, and get out of the rut we're in. That's what we're trying to do. So when you see us talk about support Black businesses, you guys can support Black businesses too. Like, we're not out here trying to take nothing. We're not out here doing wrong. We're just trying to build our community, you guys, because you guys know we got problems, but we also have solutions. And we out.
Peace.
From the team at CRC Empire, we want to thank you for listening. To stay connected with us, like, share, and subscribe to the We Got Problems podcast. You can find us on social media platforms at Curtis Martin 247, at Rhonda Wrights Official, and at the_trash_vegan_. We got problems and we got solutions.